Okay, everybody, as I promised, this is part two of the February 1st class. And just as a way of reminder, I posted part one here in the announcements section. There it is. So you can go over and take a look at it. And again, to follow up, I went through how I handle the course. I do a workshop format, as those of you know who've had classes with me before, and we went over that whole issue. Now let's go over here for a moment and let's take a look at the syllabus, which will lay out for us all the assignments that are due when they're due. And our first assignments are due the 15th of February, okay? And the 15th of February, as you can see right there, is 2 weeks from last night. And the Rock-Off exam, number one, which is over chapter 1 and 2, will be due, okay? And then when you come down to February the 22nd, you'll see we move in to kick this thing into gear. You'll have exam number 2 on Rock-Off, okay? And exam number 3, okay? And exam number 2 deals with chapter 6 and chapters 13 through 15. And exam number 3 deals with chapters 3 through 5, all right? And also, you have Access Workshop number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, last night, we worked on Access Workshop number 1. Now, I want to go over in the files here, okay? And I have a file that will tell you, okay, what files to upload for Access Workshops 1 through 4. And I'll find it here for just a moment. It was a document. And thank you for waiting. I will find it here. Here it is. It's called Uploads for the 4 Access Workshops. Okay? Now I'm going to download this thing for a moment, and it will tell us what we have to turn in for each of those 4 workshops. Now, here's the document, okay? We did this last night. We did Access Workshop number 1. We put the data warehouse, okay, and that was Access Workshop 1. We talked about the data warehouse concept, and the data warehouse concept says, okay, I either have a series of databases pulled together into some type of query engine, okay, where I can call data from those databases, or I have one database with a whole series of tables, okay? And we talked about the difference between dimension tables, DIM, we talked about fact tables, and we talked about data warehouse tables. And we did that as we looked at the data warehouse file in the Rock-Off zip file. So let's look at that for a moment, okay? And again, that's the Rock-Off zip file, and it's over here in Canvas. And these are the Rock-Off files, and we'll click we'll download that. I believe these are the ones I want. We'll open this up, and yes, we are. And we did that, the data warehouse, okay? Now, the next piece, number 2, is the fact sales Access Workshop 2 export, okay? And that's over in the files section of Canvas. All right, so I'm going to diminish this down. And let's go find that file. Pardon me. And we're going to talk about it just briefly. It's the fact sales access workshop 2. So I'm just going to come up here to the search, and I'm going to look for fact sales, and there it is. Now you say, okay, Dr. Harmon, what is this? Well, one of the things we're going to do, and when we talk about the access, when we talk about the data warehouse concept, as I walked you through the Rockoff textbook, back there in chapters, I believe 14 and 15, we talk about the design. One is, or the schema, and one is known as the snowflake. The other is known as a star. The difference between the two of them is this. At the middle of everything is a sales database or transaction database, okay? But with a snowflake, we add subcategories, okay? So we can slice and dice the data even better, okay? And again, next week we'll go back to that, but that's why I said I want you to read chapters 14 and 15 this week in the Rockoff text. It's the blue one, okay? To get acquainted with how a warehouse is put together, okay? And then what we do with it, and all this design, all of this is designed for us to be able to generate queries that in turn generate data for us, or even a report that we can use. In other words, that's actionable. We talked about this when we talked about the wisdom pyramid: information, knowledge, and then wisdom. Well, let's look at this for just a moment, okay? And this is an export, all right? And this is an Excel file, and we did an export. And you say, what's the point here? Well, one of the things that's characteristic of an effective data warehouse and a characteristic of effective administration of data is the ability to move data from one place to the other, and if necessary, to clean it up, put it into a format that's structured that we can work with. And we're going to talk, and you'll hear me talk about unstructured data out there, okay? And that's data that just doesn't fit a chart. It could be anything, as I said before, like tweets. It could be likes on Facebook pages. It could be recommendations through Yelp. It could be geographic data. It could be data from a sensor on a product, or the data from the sensors in a manufacturing facility. It could be data from your phone based upon your usage of apps. And we talked about this case that's going on right now about this individual who identified was able to use a fitness app data to identify military bases. And here we have an export. So a piece of this is we also understand in effective data administration that we let spreadsheets do what spreadsheets do best, and we let data we let databases do what they do best. We make certain that we use those tools. Now, as you're going to hear me mention many times, the Holy Grail is one application that can do the work of a database and the work of a spreadsheet. Okay, that's the Holy Grail. We're not there yet. We have some products that are close, and you'll get a chance to learn about them as we go through the semester. All right, but we need to understand that databases are primarily intended to collect, to classify, to store, and to provide an easy means to access or to obtain data. Okay, And we'll talk about that uh, as we go through the course now. It's also involves the ability to move data and change them from one format to the other, so we can turn them into information. Okay, so let's look at this for just a minute. Okay, and here's this export. Now this is what you'll upload for Access Workshop 2, and that's, as I mentioned here. Okay, now let's examine this for just a minute. And the way we do is we say, okay, what are the dimensions or factors, i.e. the columns that we're working with? Well, we have the date of these sales, we have the customer ID, we have the channel, that's the marketing channel, we have the salesperson ID, the product ID, the type of sale ID, was it an order or a return? Okay, the list price and the line cost, and then the order number. This is a fact table. That's why if you'll see in this tab, it says fact sales. It's just a listing of transactions. In accounting, a fact table would be, the best example I'll give you, a fact table would be the general journal. Okay? A list of transactions. You see, we understand that business is transactional in nature. And so when we design a data warehouse system, we want to capture the transaction, because at the heart of the transaction is our measures, things that were sold or looked at or returned or ordered or whatever. And we also add in dimensions about the characteristics or the variables associated with our customer or our supplier or our employees. Okay, so we're looking at it from that standpoint. Now, since this is in Excel, we can do a lot more statistically with it, a lot easier than if we just wanted to mess with it. We can put this in and filter these data. Okay, we can sort them. We can chart these data much easier than we could otherwise. We can put them into, we can use conditional formatting. Okay, I can easily, for example, get the difference between the line price and the line cost. Now, if I wanted to have this add this to a table in Excel or run a query, I'd have to run a query where I take, difference equals line price in brackets minus line cost in brackets, and that would give us the difference. Here it's a little bit easier. I'm just going to simply do this, and I'm going to go ahead and put that $sign so we know that we're moving down the column. We'll use the cell referencing. And we're going to get the difference between the line price and the line cost. And it's giving me a value, which it should not be doing. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put the $sign in front of them. This is probably why I got this issue. There we go. Now I'm going to also format this over so it's easy, and then I just drag and drop. Remember, I used the appropriate cell referencing because I want to stay in the column and come down the rows. And I'm going to do that. And there we are. Now below here on this difference, and I'm going to let's see, I'm going to add this in. I'm going to insert a line here. And I'm going to call this difference. And I'll just explain it. Line price less line costs. Okay. If I want, I can go ahead and wrap the text. And I can go ahead and do copy, format painter, boom, there I am. Now I set this up here for a reason. First of all, you know, I don't want to have to recreate the entire row. Number two, I've got this offset so it gets my attention a little bit. And in fact, since we're looking at summative data, okay, then I'm in a good place. But again, you know, I might want to. Ideally, I'm going to have this down here. Okay. So I may just, I think just to be on the safe side, I'm going to get rid of that. This is the kind of thing I can do in Excel quite easily. I'll just copy this, I'll paste it, and now we're ready to go. And that top row 1, I'll just delete row 1. And there we are. Now we're ready. Because I want to know the difference between them. And now that's just raw data, okay? And we're processing it. This could be 1,000 of these, how many ever we want to work with. Just see, it's so much easier than going in and doing a query and then writing an expression. What we like to do typically is there's a cycle that we follow. Rockoff alludes to it. The Rockoff text is the blue one, but he doesn't really go into it in detail. But typically what we do is we'll run a query, okay? And then if we want to do data analysis, we take it to a tool that will let us do the analysis. All right? Now, I have these differences here between each of these, and I just did the scroll, the drag and drop, and now down here, I can do summary data like the sum, the mean, the mode, the range, the standard deviation, on and on. I can chart these. You know, I can put this all into a bar chart. And what I could do also, and I'm just going to do something very simple here. Again, we let a database be a database. We let a spreadsheet be a spreadsheet. And I'm going to highlight all that, and then I'm going to go up here to the conditional formatting, and I'm going to use color scales. Okay. Now this will alert me to when I have, this is kind of neutral, and this is good. The higher the better. Or I can identify anything that's less than some value, okay, in terms of line cost, line price minus line cost. Okay. And then we can analyze this on the basis of the sales dates, customer IDs. You can see I've got a lot of room to do some analysis here. Okay. Very typically, right, we will have the capacity to do the square root of the number of dimensions that we have. Now let's go over here to sheet number 2 and take a look. And here we've done, here I did some work, and I put this into a I put this into a pivot table. All right. So I can do some more work over here. Sheet number 3, here's another one. Sheet number 4, another one. And they're kind of incomplete analyses, but now you can understand what I was talking about when I mentioned this. So this is for Access Workshop number 2, okay, as I tell you here in that document. The whole point is that I take data and I run a query, I collect the data, and then I put them into a place where I can do something with them. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of this conditional formatting. Okay, and we'll clear the rules from the selected cells. Okay, and now if we want to, we can do a chart. All right, and I'm going to insert, let's see, a bar chart, a column chart, and I'm going to do a two-dimensional cluster chart, and I'm going to come over here, and I'll start select the data. Okay, and I'm going to get my legend series, and that will be sales. The name will be sales date, and the series data will be all of these dates. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to get, and I'm going to move these to let's move these over to the column. There we go. And we'll stop this for just a second. And I have the sales dates. Now I want to add in, well, let's reverse that for just a second. And let me see here. I'm going to select the data. I'm going to add this legend series, and what I want is the difference. That's what I want. And the series values will be all of these. All right. And then I'm going to add the categories, and that will be the dates. I'll get that x-axis row there. And not going to look too pretty. We'll have to take this chart and stretch it out some. There we go. Now, this is the kind of thing we can do in Excel and do it pretty easy. Okay. The pivot table probably is going to work better for us, but if we want, we can go ahead and depict it graphically. All right. And again, here's some PowerPoint. We've got the customer ID, and we can also get the customer ID in terms of values. That would be the sum. All right. And you get the product ID and put that in here. I'm going to get rid of this. And with the sum of the sum of the customer ID, and let's go to value field settings. Okay, and I want to show them as a count, not a sum. Okay, so for my rows, I have the product ID. Okay, and I can come in here and I can call that product. All right, and it shows up there. There's the product ID, and we'll go ahead and add a little bit of a border there. Okay, same story over here. In fact, we probably could have just done it for everybody. All right, now we have the column labels, and we can choose there in the column, we have the customer ID, and we have the count of customer ID. Okay, now we can add in another. As I mentioned here, the customer ID and the product ID go hand in hand. Now, I can go ahead and I can add another dimension, and I'm going to do that over here. And the salesperson, but I'm going to put this in the report filter, and here's at the top. So if I want to look salesman by salesman, I can do all of them or some of them based on the salesman ID. I can also add the channel ID. Okay? Internet, phone, or mail. And then I can get I can get line prices, etc. But I've done in the fact cells, I've computed a difference line. So you can see this is this first step where we're doing a process of extraction. We collect all these data. We format them and clean them up so we can use them and put them into the warehouse. And then we pull them out and take a look at them. So we export them, okay? So this second piece of these 4 Access workshops, we talk about exporting the data, okay? Pulling them out of one type of application, that is a database, into another, which is a spreadsheet, which allows us to do some analytical work. All right, now if I want to, if I'm concerned, I can get some counts, and we'll just do this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of the row 1. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here to the sort and filter, and I'm just going to do a filter. And now if I want to see just this one date, I can do so. Now, otherwise, I have to go back to the database. I have to put together a query and run it. I can do the same kind of function in here. It's just a little bit easier, a little bit more intuitive. Okay, and when you go out to work, you'll be working with tools in this nature. And so I'm going to select, I'm going to deselect everything, and I want to get everything in June 6th. Okay. And those are my June 6th sales. I know I had 6 transactions. And I could get summary data for those June 6th transactions. Okay? So this is primarily, and covers Access Workshop number 2. So you know now what to upload for Access Workshop number 2. All right. Now, I will wait till class next week, or I may do a pre-recorded session and then do the class session so you have it all put together. I'm not sure. I'll probably just do this thing and do the class session and then do a screencast like this. But that's what we're after there in terms of Access Workshop number 2. Now, I have some, and let's go ahead and get rid of that. I have some resources for you that I want you to look at, all right? And I'm going to go back over to the modules area, and you'll notice over here the orientation, I have all kinds of information about the course, etc., okay? And there are some of these that I want to reiterate with you or show them to you. First of all, I have some links again, as I do in all my class. I encourage you to go take a look over at Harvard Business School online, MIT Sloan Management, those are online publications, take a look at them. Knowledge by Horton is another. Insights at Stanford. So you see what's going on with the sharpest minds, the best business minds out there. What are these big companies? What are they talking about? What are they concerned about? Okay. Also have a link for the Christian Business Faculty Association. I have a link to the supplemental website for the course. It's not as well as developed some of the other ones, but it is out there. Okay. This is an old, as y'all, all of you recall, well, most of you have come in since we've had an LMS. There may be some of you who don't remember that we just started using Moodle, so it's probably before your time. So let's go back over to the modules, okay? And there's this banner, Snapgrade, and all that business. Now, some of these things you can see, some of them you can't. It depends upon what I've got going on here. Now, here's some things I wanted to visit with you. Here is for example, there's some really, really interesting resources here for you to see. And I want you to take a look at them. I'm going to unpublish that because we're not using Concan anymore at all. So I might as well unpublish it. What I'm doing is I'm able to cloak these and hide them just like I deselect items when I run a query. Here are the Patrick materials. Here are the Rockoff materials. You'll have some work to do over at Teradata University. I have that for you. And then I have the files for Access Workshop 3 and 4 and 5, but we have just the 4 workshops. Now, I want to show you something. Here's something interesting. Using big data to predict what's going on in the housing market. Okay, and using Google searches. That's something I'd like you to go take a look at because it gives you a flavor of what a powerful tool we have and that we could use here. Here's an article about Intel and the work that they're doing. Here's the National Recovery Database. That's a database near to my heart. Here's CitySense, Trade Fair. These are people who've said, okay, I'm going to develop a database and use it as a tool. And this is from SAS, and there's a resource from unstructured data. You'll see me refer back to these. Click tracks. Okay. The Internet of Everything. All types of places you can go and look at data warehouse. Now this is one that I definitely want to make sure that you see, so I'm going to pull it up here. This talks about the flow of data, okay, through a data warehouse and then into the different products. Now, here on the left are what we call enterprise resource planning tools. Those could be, and you can see each of them feed in customer data, vendor data, product data, and other data. Okay, and there's one in enterprise resource planning. There's one in financial, one in customer relationship management, and one on external conditions. These are all strategic in nature. Okay, because a data warehouse is intended to provide a place where we have all of our data that we can go and pull it out and use it for strategic purposes. You remember we talked about the idea of information, knowledge, and wisdom. And then at the heart of all of that is business intelligence. Well, here we have the convergence of those, and notice this data warehouse, see the shading. It's to imply that I'm going to get a report just on customers, a report just on vendors. Here I'm doing some slicing and dicing. I'm getting some combined data, okay? And then here's data just about the product, and here's data, any other data. So this shows you the flow. And so you can see when we talk about slice and dice, this is what we mean, okay? As I've mentioned before, repeat it again. When I work with an organization today, it's mainly churches, okay? It is exclusively churches now. They're all, I do those all pro bono. I ask them, what are the 5 things you need to know? That's what should be on your dashboard. What are the 5 things that your assistants need to know? I'll ask the hierarchy or the organization in those is, the pastors, and then their administrative assistants. That's kind of the management team. And so I'll say, what is it that you pastor should have on your screen? Maybe they have a church administrator if they're large enough, that kind of thing. But it's always a frustrating experience for them because I tell them there are 3 to 5 bits of data that you need to know. You need to track. You need to monitor. Then the other piece of your dashboard is that where I can do some serendipity. I can do some. I call it the serendipitous part of your dashboard, where I can do just some queries unplanned on a what if basis. Well, what if our giving stays at this level? Where are we in terms of the budget? That type of thing. Okay. So this is very important and very instructive for you to see these data flows. And this is a process. These are collection, and often we have to do some processing or reconstructing of data in here, or we just throw it in raw into the warehouse, and in the warehouse it all gets cleaned up. And then over here we have the output. So notice we have convergence, and divergence. So that really does provide you a great picture in terms of in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, I have some things here like stuff that I think would be interesting for you to see. This is a searching for Flight 370. That's an old link. Some ways they're trying to figure out. Here, the World Top Incomes Database, Big Data, a day in the life of Big Data. Big data analytics and predictive. These are resources for you, okay, to take a look at. And of course, here's a familiar thing. We did the wisdom triangle last night. So let's look at the cube. All right. And you'll remember this anytime you've had a class with me. the Q, that's the quality of decision I make, is determined by, is a function of the extent to which I'm aware and of known and unknown condition or states of nature, and known and unknown alternative courses of action. And I even go so far, and you've seen this before, to show you in terms of basically a payoff table, but I call this a risk table, where we look at known conditions and unknown conditions, known alternatives and unknown alternatives. And what we try to do is to lower the risk using our management, our information, and our knowledge. We use it to moderate risk or to push that boundary back just a little bit. Okay? Now, I'm going to pop back over here, and I've got some things I think are kind of interesting for you to look at. And I'm going to go out in here the net for just a minute. And I'm going to go to the New York Times. And I want to show you something that caught my eye this morning, which absolutely, totally blew me away. This is what the New York Times is, they're showing us with augmented reality. Now, data warehouses can provide us a way to produce augmented reality. Watch what she clicks the phone. She gets up, she walks over, and using augmented reality, she can see a newsstand from the New York Times. Isn't that wild? Okay. Now, a database and data administration provide that kind of product. And what's happening here? Why would they do this? Well, you remember I talked about the three key things we're trying to do. Monitor the external environment. What's going on out there? Our competitors are second. Second thing is monitor, fix, improve our internal operations. And three, always be moving forward to build customer relationship management, to build higher and higher intimacy with the customer. Now here she is using augmented reality, okay? And it looks like she's at the newspaper stand. Imagine, okay, that you want to see what it's like to drive a particular car. So I'm going to take you over and show you. And this is not possible without database technology. Now I'm going to show you my favorite. And here's their official site. Here are their different models. The Range Rover Velar, the Evoque. Here's the Range Rover. Here's the Discovery. They're sport models, a plug-in hybrid, etc. This is my favorite, the Discovery Sport. Now this is all built like a database. Notice I've got some things I can drill down. I can build my own. I basically can run a query. I can search for it. Okay. I can look at reviews, request a quote, search the inventory. I can explore its versatility, etc. Now, I'm just basically looking at JPEGs. A database. Okay, now I'm going to go down below here and we can see some key features. And if I want to click, I can interact. All right, isn't that nice? And they have a film attached to these, the interior design. And I can go to the view gallery. See what it looks like with different configurations. I think you get my drift. So we can use a database to even build some relationship with our customer, or go build your own car. You're going in, you've got a menu, you make your selections. So the idea that the reason that I'm so excited about data warehouses is all of the possibilities that they give us. And really, if you look over here, I'm at the New York Times, you'll see this if you went to ESPN, you'd see the same thing. This is really nothing more than a form, and we'll talk about those. We did some in 1123, where I drill down to see something. Now, I want to go back to the Times to show you that map. I'm just going to do a quick search. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the fitness app I was talking about, and people being concerned that it's going to show the activity of folks. And this shows you, for example, North Korean and South Korean soldiers with Fitbits logging in front of each other in the demilitarized zone. And this is, here's something that shows, turn it on, tracking their exercise. Bad people wanted to conduct an ambush. You've got everything you need. Where they their pathway, you can see topography, etc. Here's another one. There's a big controversy going on about this, and I mentioned that briefly. And you'll want to take a look at that, okay? So you can see with GIS, Geographic Information Systems, open street maps. This is the one I talked about last night about heat maps that retailers have. Click on that. This uses the heat generated by a phone, and it shows the flow of customers inside a retail establishment. Where do they stop? Where do they spend time? What do they just bypass? Okay? And this is not possible without database technology. Some good stuff there. Let me log myself back into Canvas, get back in there, and come back over to 4403. In fact, my dashboard on Canvas, notice it's my dashboard. Look what's here. The folks who created the dashboard for Canvas say, okay, here's some elements on the left that you'll need or want. Here's some stuff to do. Okay, here's stuff coming up. Here's some recent feedback. This tells me you have some new announcements, discussions, anything of that sort. Okay, you'll notice I've done something here. Any class that's live now or was live in the fall, notice I've created an iconic signal that is the admissions screenshot from the OVU website. A cool picture of the cool bison as you walk up there. The walk that many of you will be taking as you're heading out, and all of you will be taking as you head out into your future. Let's go back over here. I think you can start to see why these are such critically important tools. And of course, as we saw today, the beauty of the data warehouse concept is the import, export, transformation of data into information, and information into knowledge, and knowledge into business wisdom. And you'll start to see as you get into that business intelligence text, okay, why they're so important. Let's go back up here one more time, and I want to review the syllabus with you and talk about what's going to be coming up on the 15th of February, okay? Rock-Off Exam 1 will be due, okay? That's a week. The 15th is a week, 2 weeks from yesterday. Then on the 22nd, which would be 3 weeks from yesterday, you're going to have these access workshops. We did number 1 last night. I showed you what to get and to do for access workshop number 2. And then in class next week, we'll talk about 3 and 4. And you'll also have these exams. So you could and should be working ahead. Okay? Well, folks, this is going to take care of part 2. So I'm going to stop the share and then stop the recording and process all this and post it at YouTube, and I'll have it in the announcements section for it. I'll put it over the announcements section. Okay? So as promised, here's part 2 of February 1st.